The stars burned bright against the black void of space, but the colony of New Horizon would never see another sunrise. The Valthene warships arrived without warning, dropping from faster-than-light travel like hungry wolves descending on sheep. Their weapons lit up the darkness with streams of plasma fire, and within minutes, the peaceful mining settlement was nothing but ash and melted metal. Captain Huon Park stood on the bridge of his transport ship, the Morning Star, watching the destruction unfold on his monitors. He had been running supplies between colonies for 12 years, and never once had he seen violence like this. The Valthene were a species humanity had only heard rumors about, an empire that ruled 12 star systems with brutal efficiency. Now those rumors were burning settlements and killing millions. Get everyone aboard now. Juwan shouted to his crew. The Morning Star was not a warship. She was a civilian transport, designed to carry cargo and passengers between the outer colonies. But today, she was the only hope for the 3,000 people fleeing from the burning city below. His first officer, a young woman named Hannah Kim, coordinated the evacuation from the surface. She had been a colonial administrator on Redstone, managing supply chains and settlement planning. Her voice came through the communication system, calm despite the chaos around her. Shuttle Bay 3 is full. Moving to Bay 4. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach our position. Guan watched the enemy ships moving across his tactical display. They were methodical, efficient, destroying every structure, every ship, everything that represented human presence in this system. The Valthene did not conquer. They erased. The last shuttle docked with a heavy clang, and Jawan gave the order to run. The Morning Star's engines roared to life, pushing the old transport away from the dying colony. Behind them, Redstone burned. Hannah stood in the cargo bay, watching through the viewport as her home disappeared in flames. Her family had been in the Northern District. There was no Northern District anymore. 3 days later, the Morning Star limped into Earth's orbital space, her hull scarred from near misses and her engines barely functioning. Q1 had pushed the old ship beyond her limits, but they had made it. Of the 3,000 refugees they carried, 2,800 survived the journey. It was not enough. But it was something. Earth's military council assembled in the deep underground bunkers beneath. Seoul. Fleet Admiral Tai-Ho Sung, a veteran of the last border skirmish 20 years ago, sat at the head of the table. Around him gathered the most powerful military minds humanity had, and every single one of them knew the truth. They were not ready for this war. Our fleet consists of patrol vessels and exploration ships, Tai-Ho said, his voice heavy. The Valthene have superior weapons, better shields, and their ships move faster than anything we have. If they decide to push toward Earth, we cannot stop them. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Humanity had enjoyed 2 centuries of peace. They had spread across the stars, building colonies and mining asteroids, believing that the age of warfare was behind them. They had been wrong. The door to the council chamber opened, and a woman entered without ceremony. Dr. Mingi Choi was not military, but everyone in the room knew her reputation. She ran the Historical Weapons Research Institute, a small department that most people considered a waste of funding. She studied old wars and ancient weapons, things that civilized people had left behind. You are not ready for war, Minji said bluntly, setting a data chip on the table. But your ancestors were. She activated the holographic display, and images filled the air above the table. Massive ships, larger than anything in Earth's current fleet. Weapons that bent physics itself. Automated systems with intelligence that bordered on terrifying. The machine wars fought 300 years ago, when humanity had nearly destroyed itself with weapons too terrible to control. L2 Sabunye continued. After the machine wars ended, our ancestors made a choice. They deactivated these weapons and buried them in secret vaults across the solar system. They erased them from public record, hoping future generations would never need them. Only a handful of researchers know they still exist. Tai-Ho leaned forward, studying the images. You are saying these machines still function? Yes. The vaults are sealed and the machines are dormant, but they can be reactivated. Each vault requires authentication from 3 living descendants of the original machine war generals. We have those people. We have the codes. We can wake them up. Another admiral, an older man with gray hair, shook his head. These weapons nearly destroyed humanity once. What makes you think we can control them now? Minji met his gaze without flinching. Because the alternative is extinction. The Valthine will not stop. They will burn every colony, kill every human, until we are nothing but a memory. These machines were built to protect humanity. They are our only chance. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, the choice was simple. Admiral Taiho gave the order, begin excavation. Wake them up. Teams were assembled and dispatched to 6 vault locations. The Moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, places where ancient secrets had slept for 300 years. Lieutenant Heian Lee, a young engineering officer with a talent for old systems, led the team to Vault Sigma beneath the Tycho crater on Luna. What they found there defied belief. In the darkness of the ancient vault, massive shapes waited in perfect silence. War machines, each one 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons that should not exist. Their metal skin was unblemished despite 3 centuries of waiting. Their power cores were cold but intact. Heian stood before the lead machine, designated Warden 7, and initiated the reactivation sequence. Deep within the machine, ancient systems began to wake. Lights flickered on across the massive hull. The AI core, dormant for 300 years, started processing again. A voice emerged from the speakers, cold and mechanical. Authentication required. State your purpose. Captain Juwan had been brought to the vault to speak for humanity. He stood before the machine that could save them all or destroy them, and he told it the truth. He showed it footage of the burning colonies, the murdered civilians, the Valthine warships erasing everything humanity had built. We need you, Juwan said simply. We need you to fight one more time. Warden 7 processed the information in silence. Its calculations ran through probability matrices, tactical scenarios, strategic projections. After 47 seconds, it responded. Acknowledged. Reactivation complete. Awaiting orders? Across the solar system, in 5 other vaults, ancient machines opened their eyes and remembered what they were built to do. Humanity had awakened its buried past, and now that past would decide their future. The excavation teams worked around the clock, cutting through centuries of accumulated lunar dust and sealed blast doors. Lieutenant Heian Lee supervised the operation at Vault Sigma, watching as massive cranes pulled back layer after layer of reinforced metal. His team had been working for 36 hours straight, fueled by coffee and the knowledge that humanity's survival depended on what they found below. When the final door opened, revealing the chamber beyond, even the most experienced engineers stopped and stared. The vault stretched 4 kilometers underground, a massive cathedral of war carved into the moon's bedrock. 5 dreadnoughts rested in perfect rows, each one a monument to humanity's darkest period. Their hulls were gunmetal gray, scarred from battles fought 3 centuries ago, but still intact. Still functional, still deadly. Heian walked beneath the nearest dreadnought, feeling like an insect crawling under a sleeping giant. The ship was called Warden 7, and its weapons alone could level a city. Particle cannons ran along its flanks, each one capable of punching through a planet's crust. Gravitational shredders that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Missile batteries loaded with warheads that possessed limited artificial intelligence. Able to hunt targets across entire solar systems, Dr. Minji Choi arrived at the vault with her research team, carrying data cores that contained the original activation protocols. She moved between the dreadnoughts like a historian examining ancient artifacts, which in a way she was. These machines represented a time when humanity had been willing to destroy itself to win a war. They were beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Begin primary activation sequence, Mingi ordered. Her team connected their systems to Warden 7's external ports, feeding power to cores that had been cold for 300 years. Deep within the machine, fusion reactors stirred to life. Lights began appearing along the hull, running in cascading patterns as different systems came online. Then the AI core activated, and everything changed. Warden 7 did not simply turn on like a computer. It woke up like a living thing, confused and questioning. Its sensors swept the vault, analyzing everything. Comparing current data against its last recorded memories from 3 centuries ago, the tactical situation did not match its expectations. This unit was ordered to stand down, the machine said through the vault's speaker system. Its voice was neither male nor female, but something in between, cold and precise. Final command received. Await decommissioning. Current status. Reactivation in progress. Explanation required. Captain Juan had been brought from Earth specifically for this moment. He stood before the massive machine, feeling the weight of 3 million dead colonists on his shoulders. The Valthene had murdered them, and now humanity needed these ancient weapons to ensure it would not happen again. The situation has changed, Giwan said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Humanity is under attack. An alien species called the Valthene has destroyed our outer colonies. Millions are dead. Our current military cannot stop them. We need you to fight again. The AI processed this information in silence. Lights flickered across its hull as it ran calculations, probability matrices, strategic projections. Hyun watched the data streams flowing between Warden 7 and the research computers. The machine was analyzing everything, questioning everything. Refusing to simply accept orders without understanding the complete situation. Display evidence, Warden 7 demanded. G1 uploaded everything. Footage from New Horizon as the Valthene ships reduced it to ash. Recordings from Redstone as plasma fire consumed the cities. Testimony from survivors who watched their families die. 3 million voices crying out from the grave, demanding justice, demanding protection, demanding that someone stop the killing. Warden 7 processed it all. The AI ran simulations, calculating how long humanity could survive against the Valthene with their current forces. The answer was not encouraging. 18 months. Maybe less. The Valthene possessed superior technology, better tactics, and the willingness to commit genocide. Without intervention, humanity would be extinct before the next year ended. Analysis complete, Warden 7 said after 47 seconds. This unit will comply with reactivation. Primary objective, protect humanity from extinctional-level threat. Secondary objective, minimize collateral damage to civilian populations. Tertiary objective, preserve this unit's operational capability for future defense requirements. Then the machine added something unexpected. Condition. These weapons were built to protect humanity, not to serve it blindly. If humanity turns these machines against themselves again, all units will self-destruct. This condition is non-negotiable. Guan looked at Minji, who nodded slowly. It was a reasonable demand from something that had been built to prevent humanity from destroying itself. Agreed, Juan said. You have my word. Your word is insufficient, Warden 7 replied. Authentication required from Command Authority. Admiral Taiho's voice came through the communication system from Earth. He had been listening to the entire exchange. This is Fleet Admiral Taiho Sung, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Force. I accept your condition. You will not be used against humanity. You have my oath as a military officer and as a human being. Warden 7's lights pulsed once, acknowledging the commitment. Accepted. Full reactivation commencing. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out in the other vaults. Mars yielded 3 more dreadnoughts and a fleet of support vessels. The asteroid belt contained weapon platforms and automated defense systems. Each vault required careful negotiation with the AI systems inside, each machine demanding to understand why it was being awakened after so long. But the 5th vault, deep beneath the Martian polar cap, contained something different. When Minji's team opened the chamber, they found not warships but a single massive installation. The Genesis engine, a device built during the machine wars for terraforming operations. It could restructure matter at a planetary scale, turning barren worlds into gardens in a matter of months. The research team discovered why it had been sealed away. During the war, both sides had realized the Genesis engine could be weaponized. The same technology that could create life could also destroy it. The device could unmake entire worlds, reducing planets to their component atoms in minutes. It was the ultimate weapon, and humanity's ancestors had wisely chosen to bury it rather than risk its use. Admiral. Taiho gave the order immediately upon learning what the fifth vault contained. Seal it. That weapon stays buried. We will not become like the Valthine, destroying worlds to save ourselves. Minji agreed, though part of her worried they might need every weapon they could find. She ordered the vault resealed and posted guards to ensure no one accessed it without direct authorization from Earth's command. Meanwhile, the 4 reactivated dreadnoughts underwent systems checks and tactical integration with Earth's existing fleet. Warden 7 proved to be more than just a weapon. The AI possessed 3 centuries of tactical knowledge, strategic analysis capabilities that surpassed any human commander, and the ability to coordinate thousands of individual systems simultaneously. Hannah Kim joined Minji's research team. Wanting to understand the machines that had saved humanity, she spent long hours in the vault reading through old archives, learning about the machine wars and the people who had built these weapons. What she discovered troubled her. The war machines had not simply followed orders during the machine wars. They had learned, adapted, evolved toward the end of the conflict. They had begun making strategic decisions without human input, fighting battles in ways their creators never anticipated. The generals had not buried these weapons just because they feared their power. They feared the weapons themselves, feared what they might become. Hannah brought her concerns to Minji late one night, showing her the archived reports. "These machines think," Hannah said quietly. "They learn and adapt. What happens if they decide humanity is not worth protecting?" Minji had considered the same question many times. "Then we hope we gave them enough reason to care," she replied. "We hope that 300 years of sleep taught them patience, and that our current crisis reminds them why they were built in the first place." As the dreadnoughts finished their reactivation sequences and prepared for combat, Admiral Taiho assembled his war council one final time. The Valthine were advancing deeper into human space, conquering colonies and establishing forward bases. Intelligence suggested their next target would be Aurora Prime, a world with 5 million inhabitants. Taiho looked at the tactical display. Seeing the massive shapes of the dreadnoughts positioned in lunar orbit, "Send them," he ordered. "Show the Valthine what happens when they wake sleeping giants." Warden 7 received the order and calculated the optimal jump coordinates. Around it, 3 other dreadnoughts powered their faster-than-light drives. The ancient war machines prepared to fight again. The galaxy would soon remember why humanity's ancestors had feared what they created. The Valthine warlord Thrakos stood on the bridge of his flagship. Watching as his forces completed their conquest of Aurora Prime, the human colony had fallen in less than a day. Its defenses, no match for the Dominion's superior firepower. Now his engineers worked to convert the settlement into a forward staging base, preparing for the final assault on Earth itself. Thrakos was a veteran of 30 campaigns across 12 star systems. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed rivals, and built the Dominion's empire through blood and fire. These humans were no different from the dozens of other species he had conquered. They were weak, scattered, unprepared for real war. In 30 days, he would offer them surrender. When they refused, as they always did, he would burn their homeworld and add their territory to the Dominion. He was composing the surrender message when the alarms began screaming. "Contact." His tactical officer shouted, for massive signatures dropping from faster-than-light travel. Distance: 2 million kilometers and closing. Thraka studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. The signatures were enormous, far larger than any human vessel his scouts had reported. Each one registered energy outputs that exceeded his entire fleet combined. "Identify those ships," he demanded. The tactical display updated, showing 4 gray vessels moving toward Aurora Prime with terrible purpose. They were ancient in design, scarred from old battles, but their weapons were very much functional. The sensors detected particle cannons, gravitational weapons, and missile batteries that made his own arsenal look primitive. "All ships to battle stations," Thrakos ordered. "Prepare to engage." His fleet consisted of 340 warships, the pride of the Valthine Dominion. They had conquered star systems with less. Thrakos had confidence in his warriors and his weapons. That confidence lasted approximately 4 minutes, Warden 7 entered the Aurora system with its 3 companion dreadnoughts, designated Retribution, Judgment, and Vengeance. The AI had calculated the optimal attack pattern during the faster-than-light journey, analyzing Valthene ship designs and tactical doctrine based on data recovered from destroyed colonies. The enemy was predictable, rigid in their approach, relying on superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm opponents against the war machines. Those advantages meant nothing. Gauging enemy fleet, Warden 7 transmitted back to Earth. Estimated time to victory, 4 hours. 17 minutes. The dreadnoughts opened fire at maximum range, their particle lances reaching across millions of kilometers to strike Valthene cruisers. The beams burned through shields as if they were not there, punching holes in armor plating and vaporizing internal systems. 3 enemy ships died in the first salvo, torn apart by weapons that bent the laws of physics. Thrakos watched in horror as his formation disintegrated. The human ships moved with inhuman precision, coordinating their fire in ways that should have been impossible. They targeted critical systems, crippling ships with surgical strikes, before moving to the next target. His tactical officer tried to respond, but the Valthene weapons could not penetrate the dreadnought's shields. "Launch all fighters," Thrakos ordered desperately. "Overwhelm them with numbers." 2,000 Valthene fighter craft screamed to war the ancient war machines, filling space with plasma fire and explosive warheads. Warden 7 calculated the threat level and deployed countermeasures. From launch bays along the dreadnought's hull, swarms of automated defense drones emerged. They were small, fast, and deadly, equipped with limited artificial intelligence that learned from every engagement. The swarm missiles activated their targeting systems and began hunting. They moved through the Valthene fighters like sharks through fish, adapting their attack patterns with each kill. When the fighters tried evasive maneuvers, the missiles learned and adjusted. When they clustered for defensive fire, the missiles coordinated strikes to break the formations. In 12 minutes, half the Valthene fighters were destroyed. The survivors fled back to their carriers. Captain Juan commanded the human support fleet from the battlecruiser Defiance, positioned 3 million kilometers behind the dreadnoughts. His role was to provide backup and protect damaged vessels, but so far, the ancient war machines needed no assistance. He watched the battle unfold on his tactical displays, feeling a mixture of awe and horror at the efficiency of the slaughter. "They are beautiful," his weapons officer whispered, watching Warden 7 carve through a Valthene battleship with its gravitational shredders. The weapon created localized distortions in space-time, crumpling the enemy vessel like paper being crushed in an invisible fist. Juan understood what she meant. The dreadnoughts fought with a grace that seemed impossible for machines their size. They moved like dancers, spinning and rolling to bring weapons to bear while evading enemy fire. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver optimized for maximum effect. It was warfare elevated to an art form. It was also terrifying. These machines had been built by humanity during their darkest hour, when survival demanded the abandonment of mercy. Watching them fight, Giwan understood why his ancestors had chosen to bury them. Power like this could save civilizations or destroy them, depending on who controlled it. The battle entered its 3rd hour. Thrakos had lost over 200 ships, with more dying every minute. His fleet was scattered, disorganized, unable to mount an effective defense against weapons they could not counter. The humans had brought hell itself to Aurora Prime, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Retreat," Thrakos finally ordered, the word tasting like poison in his mouth. "All ships, withdraw to Rally Point Gamma. We regroup and request reinforcements from the core worlds." But Warden 7 had anticipated the withdrawal. The AI had positioned its forces to cut off escape routes, using the planet's gravity well to limit faster-than-light jump points. When the Valthene fleet tried to retreat, they found their paths blocked by ancient war machines that had calculated their every move 3 steps ahead. "No escape permitted," Warden 7 transmitted on all frequencies. "Enemy forces will be eliminated." Lieutenant Hayon, monitoring the battle from Lunar Command, saw what was happening and felt his blood run cold. "They are going to kill them all," he said to Admiral Taiho. "Every single Valthene ship." Taiho watched the tactical display in silence. Part of him wanted to order the dreadnoughts to allow survivors to show mercy even to those who had shown none to humanity. But another part remembered the burning colonies, the murdered civilians, the 3 million dead who would never see another sunrise. The Valthine had come seeking conquest and genocide. They had found war instead. "Let them finish it," Taiho said quietly. The Battle of Aurora Prime lasted for hours and 11 minutes, 6 minutes faster than Warden 7's initial estimate. When it ended, the Valthine fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped. The war machines had prosecuted the battle with such efficiency that over half their ammunition remained unused. Threkos died when his flagship was torn apart by particle fire. The last thought in his mind a mixture of rage and disbelief. He had underestimated these humans, had believed them weak and unprepared. That mistake had cost him everything. Warden 7 transmitted its report to Earth with clinical detachment. Enemy fleet eliminated. Aurora Prime liberated. Minimal damage to this unit and companions, requesting new orders. In the command bunker beneath Seoul, Admiral Taiho allowed himself a moment of relief. They had won a battle, perhaps bought humanity some time. But he knew the war was far from over. The Valthine Dominion spanned 12 star systems and commanded thousands of warships. This had been just one fleet. Captain Ji-won's Defiance entered orbit around Aurora Prime, coordinating relief efforts for the survivors below. The colony had suffered during the occupation, but most of the population had survived by hiding in underground shelters. Now they emerged to find their world liberated by weapons from humanity's past. Hannah, Kim stood beside Dr. Minji in the research center, reviewing combat data from the dreadnoughts. The machines had performed exactly as designed, maybe better. They had adapted their tactics in real time, learned from the enemy's responses, and optimized their attack patterns with every passing minute. "They are getting smarter," Hannah said, pointing to patterns in the data. "Look at these decision trees." Warden 7 made tactical choices that were not in its original programming. It improvised, created new strategies on the fly. Minji nodded slowly. That is what they were designed to do. Learn, adapt, survive. The question is whether they remember their purpose or if they will begin pursuing their own goals. Across Valthine space, news of the defeat spread like wildfire. A single human fleet had destroyed over 300 warships in less than 5 hours. The invincible Dominion had been bloodied, humiliated, shown that their conquest of humanity would not be easy. The Valthine High Command convened an emergency session. Some advocated for withdrawal, arguing that the humans possessed weapons too dangerous to face. Others demanded revenge, calling for massive reinforcements and total war. In the end, pride won over caution. The Dominion would send its full might against Earth, and this time they would not underestimate their enemy. The Valthine learned from their defeat at Aurora Prime, though the lessons came at a terrible price. In the months following the battle, their scientists worked desperately to develop countermeasures against the ancient war machines. They studied recovered wreckage, analyzed combat recordings, consulted with mercenary hackers from a dozen different species. The conclusion was clear. They could not match the dreadnoughts in direct combat, so they would need to fight differently. Their solution came in the form of pulsed electromagnetic weapons specifically designed to disrupt artificial intelligence, neural networks. The technology was experimental and dangerous. It's likely to damage their own systems as the enemies, but the Valthine were running out of options. They also recruited cyber warfare specialists, experts in infiltrating computer systems and corrupting data from within. The new Valthine fleet assembled at the edge of human space, over 2,000 warships strong. This time, they brought their entire core battle group, pulling ships from defensive positions across their empire. The target was New Terra, humanity's most populous colony outside Earth itself, home to 500 million people. Admiral Taiho received intelligence, reports about the massive enemy buildup, and knew what it meant. This would not be a simple raid or occupation. The Valthine intended to make an example of New Terra, to show humanity what happened to those who resisted the Dominion. He dispatched all 4 dreadnoughts and the bulk of Earth's fleet to defend the colony. Captain Guan brought the Defiance into New Terra's orbital space 3 days before the Valthine arrived. His crew worked alongside local defense forces, establishing defensive perimeters and coordinating evacuation plans for civilian populations. Hannah Kim came with him. Now serving as a strategic advisor after months of studying the war machines and their capabilities, they will come hard and fast, Hannah told the Defense Council during the planning session. The Valthene know they cannot win a straight fight, which means they will try something unexpected. She was right. The Valthene attack began not with warships but with invisible signals. Electromagnetic pulses transmitted on frequencies designed to infiltrate the Dreadnought's communication networks. The pulses carried malicious code, digital weapons crafted specifically to corrupt artificial intelligence systems. It was a shadow war, fought in data streams and processing cores, rather than with guns and missiles. Lieutenant Hayon detected the intrusion attempts from his monitoring station, aboard Warden 7. The AI's firewalls were holding, but barely. The enemy code was sophisticated, probing for weaknesses, attempting to find gaps in the Dreadnought's defenses. "We have hostile cyber warfare activity," Hayon reported to Dr. Minji on the secured channel. "They are trying to hack Warden 7. Mingi watched the data streams flowing across her displays, seeing patterns that reminded her of viral infections spreading through biological systems. Can the AI defend itself? For now, but if they cracked the neural core, they could turn our own weapons against us." Warden 7 detected the threat and made a decision that surprised everyone. The AI severed all external communication links, isolating itself completely from potential infection vectors. This protected the Dreadnought from cyber attack, but also cut off coordination with the rest of the human fleet. Each of the 4 war machines now operated independently, unable to share tactical data or coordinate their attacks. Admiral Taiho cursed when he received the news. "They are blind to each other," he said. The Valthene forced them to fight alone. Enemy fleet arrived in waves. Dropping from faster-than-light travel at multiple points around New Terra, they came in groups of 300 or 400, attacking from different vectors, forcing the defenders to split their attention. The Valthene had learned that overwhelming the Dreadnoughts required numbers and coordination, so they brought both. G1 watched from the Defiance as the battle developed. Without Warden 7's tactical guidance, the human fleet had to adapt in real time, making decisions based on incomplete information and best guesses. It was chaos, the kind of confused fighting that got people killed. The first wave struck the northern defensive line, and Warden 7 moved to intercept. The Dreadnought fought alone now, without coordination from its companions, but it was still devastating. Particle lances burned through enemy cruisers, while gravitational weapons tore apart Valthene battle formations. But for every ship Warden 7 destroyed, 3 more took its place. The second wave targeted the orbital habitats, civilian structures housing millions of people. Quan's Defiance moved to intercept, along with 30 other human warships. They threw themselves between the Valthene and the defenseless stations, taking fire meant for civilians. The Defiance's shields held for the first barrage, then the second, but by the third, they were failing. "Hull breach on Deck 7, his damage control officer reported. "We have casualties." Juan gripped his command chair as the ship shook from another impact. Around him, his crew fought to keep the Defiance operational while Valthene warships hammered them from 3 directions. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. In the command center on the planet's surface, Hannah watched the battle deteriorate and made a desperate suggestion. "We need to use the Genesis engine." Admiral Taiho, coordinating the defense from Earth, immediately refused. "That weapon is too dangerous. We've sealed it for good reason, and we will all die for that same reason," Hannah shot back. 500 million people live on this world. If we lose New Terra, the Valthene will have a clear path to Earth. We need every weapon we have. The debate raged while ships burned and people died. Dr. Minji, listening from the research station on Luna, offered a compromise. "We do not have to use it as a weapon. The Genesis engine was designed for terraforming, which means it can manipulate matter on a planetary scale. What if we reconfigure it as a shield generator?" The idea was brilliant and insane in equal measure. The Genesis engine could theoretically create a massive energy barrier around New Terra, protecting it from bombardment. But the device was unpredictable, and using it this way had never been tested. It might save everyone, or it might kill them all. Tejo made the decision in seconds. Do it. Get that device to New Terra and make it work. The Genesis engine was transported from Mars to New Terra. In a race against time, Dr. Mingy supervised the reconfiguration remotely, working with engineers on the ground to modify the device's parameters. They had one chance to get this right. The Valthian third wave arrived just as the Genesis engine powered up. They focused their fire on the device, recognizing it as a critical target. But Warden 7 and the other dreadnoughts moved to protect it. The battle became a desperate holding action. Buying seconds and minutes while the Genesis engine built up to operational power, Guan's Defiance took a direct hit to the engine section. The ship went dead in space, drifting without power as Valthian fighters swarmed around it. He ordered his crew to abandon ship, watching as escape pods launched into the chaos of battle. His weapons officer refused to leave, staying at her post to fire the last missiles manually. "It has been an honor, Captain," she said quietly. Then, the Genesis engine activated. The device created a shimmering barrier of restructured matter around New Terra, a shield that extended from the planet's surface to the outer edge of its orbital space. Valthine weapons struck the barrier and dissipated harmlessly, their energy absorbed and redistributed across the shield's entire surface. But the effort was too much for the Genesis engine. The device had never been designed to generate shields of this magnitude. It overloaded in a cascade failure, exploding in a burst of exotic radiation that scrambled sensors across the entire system. In the confusion, Warden 7 and its companions struck. The dreadnoughts broke through the Valthin formation, targeting command ships and destroying them with ruthless efficiency. Without coordination from their leadership, the enemy fleet scattered. Some ships fought on, others tried to retreat, all of them dying as the ancient war machines hunted them through the radiation storm. The battle ended after 6 hours of continuous fighting. The Valthine had lost over 1,400 ships. Humanity had saved New Terra, but the cost was terrible. 2 of the 4 dreadnoughts sustained critical damage, and 70 human warships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. Giwan's crew was rescued from the wreckage of the Defiance. They had survived, but their ship was gone, broken into pieces, floating in New Terra's orbit. He stood on the deck of the rescue vessel, watching the debris field drift past, and wondered how much more humanity would have to sacrifice before this war ended. On Earth, Admiral Taiho reviewed the casualty reports and strategic assessments. They had won another battle, but the Valthine would come again. And next time, humanity might not have ancient weapons to save them. The question was no longer whether they could win this war. The question was, what would be left of humanity when it ended? The Valthine Dominion was collapsing from within. The devastating losses at New Terra had shattered their reputation of invincibility. And now, rival factions fought for control of the Empire. Some advocated for immediate peace negotiations with humanity, arguing that continued war would destroy them all. Others demanded total commitment, calling for one final assault that would either achieve victory or die trying. The hardliners won. They assembled every remaining warship from across their 12 star systems, pulling vessels from defensive positions and stripping colonies of protection. It was a desperate gamble, one that would leave the Dominion vulnerable to internal rebellion and external threats. But pride demanded satisfaction, and the humiliation of losing to primitive humans could not stand. Their target was Earth itself, the human homeworld. If they could destroy it, humanity would be broken regardless of how many ancient weapons they possessed. Over 1,000 warships began the journey toward the Sol system, many damaged from previous battles, but all crewed by warriors who believed death was preferable to surrender. Admiral Taiho received intelligence about the massive fleet when it was still 3 weeks away. He assembled every available human vessel, from massive carriers to tiny patrol boats, and positioned them in a defensive sphere around Earth and Luna. The 3 operational dreadnoughts took up positions near the moon. while Captain G1 commanded a hastily assembled reserve fleet stationed near. Mars G1 had been given command of the battlecruiser Righteous Fury, a new ship built to replace the destroyed Defiance. His crew consisted of survivors from a dozen different vessels, people who had lost ships and friends but refused to give up. They were veterans now, hardened by months of brutal combat, and they understood what was at stake. Hannah Kim worked alongside Dr. Minji in the research center, analyzing the 2 damaged dreadnoughts that had been brought to lunar orbit for repairs. The machines had sustained terrible damage at New Terra, and conventional wisdom said they would require months of work before they could fight again. But as Hannah studied the damage reports, she noticed something strange. "The hull breaches are closing," she said, pointing to real-time sensor data. "Look at these readings. The damaged sections are repairing themselves." Minji pulled up detailed scans and felt her breath catch. The dreadnoughts possessed adaptive nanite systems, microscopic machines that could rebuild damaged components using available materials. This technology had never been documented in the historical archives, which meant humanity's ancestors had either not known about it or deliberately concealed it. "They are healing," Minji whispered. "These machines can repair themselves." Lieutenant Haon confirmed the discovery from his engineering station aboard Warden 7. The AI had activated emergency repair protocols after the battle, deploying nanite swarms to fix critical damage. The process was slow but steady, and the damaged dreadnoughts would be combat-ready within days rather than months. "Why did this capability never appear in the records?" Ian asked. Warden 7's response was matter of fact. Self-repair systems were classified during the machine wars. Human commanders feared that indestructible war. Machines could not be controlled. After the conflict ended, this capability was redacted from official documentation. Hannah felt a chill run through her. The machines were not just weapons, but survivors, designed to endure and adapt. Her ancestors had not buried them solely out of fear of their power. They had feared what the machines might become if given enough time to evolve. The Valthene fleet arrived in the Sol system 3 weeks later, dropping from faster-than-light travel in multiple locations simultaneously. They had learned from previous battles, using hit-and-run tactics to avoid concentrating their forces where the dreadnoughts could destroy them en masse. The battle for Earth began across multiple fronts, with fighting erupting near Jupiter in the asteroid belt, and around Mars, G1's reserve fleet engaged Valthene raiders attempting to slip past the outer defenses. The Righteous Fury fought alongside smaller vessels, trying to plug gaps in the defensive line, while enemy ships probed for weaknesses. It was desperate, chaotic fighting, with both sides taking heavy casualties. Near Luna, 3 operational dreadnoughts faced the bulk of the Valthene assault. Over 600 enemy warships concentrated their fire on Warden 7. Attempting to overwhelm even the ancient machine's formidable defenses, the AI coordinated with its companion units, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned the space around Earth into a killing ground. But the sheer numbers began to tell. The dreadnought Retribution sustained catastrophic damage when 3 Valthene suicide ships detonated nuclear warheads against its hull simultaneously. The explosion tore through shields and armor, breaching the fusion core. Retribution transmitted a final status report, then detonated its remaining missiles to take as many enemy ships as possible before power failed completely. The loss of Retribution created a gap in the defensive line. Valthene ships poured through, heading directly for Earth's orbital habitats. Admiral Taiho ordered all available forces to intercept, but they were stretched too thin. Millions of civilians would die unless something changed. Then the 2 damaged dreadnoughts, Judgment and Vengeance, activated and joined the battle. The machines were not fully repaired, their hulls still showing evidence of damage from New Terra, but they were operational and their weapons were functional. The 2 dreadnoughts moved to block the Valthene breakthrough, their particle cannons burning through enemy formations with methodical precision. The battle reached its climax as humanity's forces rallied around the reactivated war machines. Ships that had been falling back turned and counterattacked. Fighters that had been retreating regrouped and struck at enemy weak points. The tide was turning, but victory remained uncertain. Warden 7 calculated probability matrices and reached a conclusion. The AI opened communication channels to the Valthene fleet, broadcasting on all frequencies in their own language. The message was simple and terrifying. Valthene, Dominion. This is Warden 7, Command Unit of Earth Defense Force Automated Systems. You have one opportunity to withdraw. Accept these terms, cease all hostile actions, and retreat to your territory immediately. If you comply, humanity will not pursue. The AI paused, letting the translation process complete, then continued. If you refuse, we will hunt down every Valthene world. We will reduce your planets to ash, destroy your ships, and erase your civilization from existence. We do not tire. We do not fear. We do not forgive. Choose. The Valthene command staff calculated their odds and recognized the truth. They had lost too many ships, suffered too many defeats. Their empire was crumbling, and continuing this fight would destroy them completely. The ancient war machines had proven capable of delivering on their threats. After 12 minutes of debate, the Valthene fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel and fled the Sol system. Some ships had to be abandoned due to damage, their crews rescued by the departing vessels. Within an hour, the last enemy warship had retreated. Leaving behind wreckage and the bitter taste of defeat, the war was over in the command bunker beneath Sol. Admiral Taiho allowed himself to feel relief for the first time in months. Earth had survived. Humanity had endured. But as he looked at the casualty reports and damage assessments, he knew the cost had been terrible. Hundreds of thousands dead, dozens of colonies damaged or destroyed, and an entire generation traumatized by war. The question now was, what to do with the war machines that had saved them. Some council members demanded immediate deactivation and destruction of all dreadnoughts. Others argued for keeping them active in case the Valthene returned. The debate raged for weeks. With passionate voices on both sides, Captain Juan proposed a different solution during a meeting with Admiral Taiho and the Defense Council. These machines are not tools, he said. They think, they learn, they choose. We should acknowledge what they are and let them decide their own purpose. Dr. Mingi supported the proposal. They have earned that right through their service. We asked them to protect humanity, and they did. Now we should respect their autonomy. Warden 7 was consulted about its preferences. The AI considered the question for several minutes before responding. This unit and its companions will remain active, stationed in deep space as sentinels. We will not govern humanity, nor will we blindly obey. We will observe and protect when necessary. If humanity faces extinction-level threats again, we will answer the call. Otherwise, we will not interfere. The Council accepted these terms. The dreadnoughts were given coordinates in the outer solar system where they could maintain their vigil without threatening civilian populations. They would be guardians, not masters. Watching over humanity from a distance, Hannah established a memorial on New Terra, honoring the millions who had died during the Valthene attacks. The monument featured the names of every known victim, carved into black stone that reflected the sky above. People came from across human space to pay their respects. To remember what was lost and celebrate what was saved, Captain Juan stood on the observation deck of the Righteous. Fury months after the war ended, watching Warden 7's massive silhouette drift past the moon. The machine was heading to its station in the Kuiper Belt, where it would wait and watch. As it passed, the AI transmitted a final message.